right now we're following this foreign policy development, which the world is taking seriously, tops many front pages, even as its core premise is unserious and would be costly for the U.S. and is rejected by experts and leaders in the United States in both parties. Now, the U.S. has played a large military role in the Middle East since invading Iraq and Afghanistan. Those costly occupations all began when hawkish conservative Republicans initially started the Iraq War. And it was first opposed by some liberals, you might recall, like Howard Dean, who actually joins us later tonight. Later by top Democrats like Obama. And then after United States majorities did turn on that war and occupation, which is back in the news tonight, only then did Donald Trump start following the lead. In fact, he attacked his rivals, the Bushes, on that point, and the hawkish Republican foreign policy over the years. Ultimately, Trump did shift GOP foreign policy against some of those hawkish records. By the 2024 campaign, he was routinely vowing to end foreign wars and U.S. spending blood or treasure abroad, and especially in the Middle East. And let me just tell you up front, because I try to keep it very direct here. Many voters believed him. Many Trump voters believed that. They accepted his claimed policy against U.S. involvement in occupation as a positive. And we heard that in surveys and interviews. Now, 2 weeks into returning to the White House, President Trump is floating a plan, however unseriously, which breaks that vow. His comments alongside the Israeli leader about plunging the U.S. into another Mideast occupation in an area that everyone knows, a region that could be as dangerous and complex as Iraq, if not more so, is the story that matters, even though I'm going to show you why it is not exactly how it looks and people should be careful overreacting. Trump saying that under his leadership, quote, the U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip. Here's that statement alongside memory lane.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. It is not the duty of U.S. troops to solve ancient conflicts in faraway lands.
That is the contrast. And for some time, he has very publicly gone after anyone affiliated with those kind of foreign conflicts, especially in the Middle East.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy.
Let's see, they're all war hawks sitting in Washington saying, let's send 10,000 troops over there. I guess you have your war hawk who's in Washington, who's talking about sending troops to occupy, of all places, at all times, the Gaza Strip. Now, let me keep it real with you. For Trump supporters, the choice on a day like today is to believe him now and acknowledge everything you just heard the past claims have proven false, or to still not believe him now, to say this isn't really it, this is disingenuous rhetoric, and it's designed for some later special purpose. Now, these remarks have managed to play poorly for both the Palestinian community, which wants a homeland, and the Israeli community, which, coming since October 7th in this war, wants to make sure there is some security over there. The Jerusalem Post reporting this just isn't even remotely feasible. Experts say the plan is unworkable. Some are throwing Trump this sort of bone of saying, well, since it can't work and it's a bad idea and nobody really wants it, maybe it's just some fake special threat that would not be enacted, another so-called gambit or tactic. Okay, I'm familiar, with paying attention to the news, I'm familiar with that kind of post hoc rationalization of something somebody said. But let's just be serious, even in these somewhat unserious moments. Even negotiating claims have consequences. That's why being a peace or hostage negotiator is a tough job. And Trump officials on cue are today walking this back. The New York Times, with the diplomatic Trump officials, try to walk back Gaza takeover plan. This is not what three-dimensional geopolitical chess sounds like. It's more like cleanup on aisle one or a lot of chess pieces knocked over in a losing game. And it's far from a doctrine where the U.S. uses power to set goals and limits that other countries follow. Trump's own aides are retracting this policy statement. And that means something very simple that will matter for the years to come. To agree with Trump today, you have to disagree with him yesterday. And this matters around the world. The broader theme here is that if you confront this, it may actually help everyone dealing with the Trump administration. There's no sign that this stuff is going to change overnight, this approach. Consider that today, Wednesday, Trump is softening those big Gaza claims from yesterday. On Monday, he backed down from his big tariff threats from the weekend. May not be America first, but it does seem like talk first and then think later, and then maybe take back what you said. On the tariff war, that strangely gives Canada and Mexico more leverage, which is the opposite of what Donald Trump said his plan and strategy was. Again, not three-dimensional chess, because it shows these other countries how you face Trump down. Get him to narrow his demands, walk it all back. Just as many of his own allies think he squandered the Mideast meeting yesterday, or take immigration, something where he and his team says this is a big deal, a big priority. He's talked about mass deportations. Okay. But he hasn't paired that talk, some might say bluster, with the federal governing planning or the congressionally needed funding to get near the numbers that he wanted. I'm going to follow the evidence and the data with you, not the rest of it. So we will show you here reporting on these first 2 weeks. It could change, but in the first 2 weeks, the number of daily ICE arrests are about where they were under Obama, a Democratic White House. Thousands have been quietly released for lack of detention capacity, meaning they haven't yet done the actual governing work with the Congress of getting the funding and then the building to increase capacity. So they're now doing the thing that they used to complain about, releasing the people back in the United States. I'm not telling you what to think about that. You can say that's good, bad, or in between. But that's what's happening. Against that backdrop is what you see on your screen. You will know those kind of facts, Obama-level immigration policy, catch and release, as some called it in political rhetoric. You'll know that if you read or follow factual news. If you don't, and I recognize the paradox, whether you're watching this live or on YouTube, if you are watching this, you're watching The Beat, MSNBC Factual News. But for others who aren't, they might only see what I am giving you a little peek of. The well-known fact that you got to do horse patrols, right? You might only see the PR horse. We'll put it back up if we have it. I know I left it up for a while, but we'll re-rack when we can. Yeah. They're playing that on Fox. I just want you to know, if you get in a conversation with someone and you say, well, they're still doing the so-called catch and release and Obama-level deportations, you might run into another person in the country who says, well, I saw the horse patrol on Fox. I'm sure you did. That's the optics. Now, depending on the issue, many may welcome what I'm showing you is a problem in how Trump and his aides are governing, a competence issue. Republicans don't really want Trump to succeed on a new Mideast occupation. So if he's brainstorming that on the fly and then it fails, they may actually like that type of incompetence in government. Again, not three-dimensional chess. Liberals might not want Trump to effectively supersize deportations. And so they might be happy with this level of incompetence. The Trump show, as always, is different than the results of Trump in charge. And I am not saying, and we are not reporting, and we don't have the evidence to substantiate the claim that it's just been 2 weeks of the horse ride-alongs. There are also, against this backdrop, these serious things happening. And an informed citizenry and an informed world needs to know that Trump did issue irreversible pardons to violent January 6 convicts, including those who attacked police. He did it, it's true, and it's not going away. It is a part of the danger that we face in the United States right now because he's freed and immunized under federal policy these violent people. He is giving billionaire Elon Musk these powers. We showed you that. Today, his DOJ is launching a new program that could lead to revenge investigations and indictments of people who held Trump accountable when he was a citizen. Federal policies have changed under Trump and already are having the intended effect of hospitals denying health care to individuals, sometimes based on their chosen or lived identity. Just like his judges from the last term, the first term, did use their power to ultimately overturn about 50 years of precedent and changing abortion rights in this country. There are many real things also happening against the optics and the incompetence. Our colleague Rachel Maddow recently focusing on this aspect of the competing realities.
It doesn't mean that they don't have the worst and most malicious intentions. They clearly do. But it gives lie to the fact that they're just not that good at any of the things they're trying to do. That level of stupidity has the benefit of making us less intimidated by them because they're being dumb. It also has the benefit of emboldening people to push back.
That's just one part of the dynamics here. And what's funny that you know from politics, and the Trump MAGA era has been really intense, supersized politics, but what you know from it is sometimes there's this strange meeting where the empty threats of an extremist are met by their foes saying, see, this proves their extremism. And you could substitute any word in that sentence just about. Their incompetence, their bluster, even at times, I would only say it when the facts support it, their apparent stupidity about a topic. Like whether anyone in the Middle East, Israeli, Palestinian, Saudi, Egypt, wants the United States to come do another occupation, let alone the American people and our brave men and women in uniform. So you can say all of that, and you get this circle where the foes say, see, it proves how extreme he is. And the truth is complicated because on one hand, it does, but on the other hand, it's a lot of noise about things that aren't happening because they are not good enough and competent enough to execute them, while a bunch of other things are also happening. I didn't say it'd be easy. I just said we would follow it together as factually as we can.